All right. In this episode of the Freedom in Business Show, I have the pleasure of introducing you to one of my favorites, my friend, colleague, and she was actually my coach as well, Helen Munshi. Helen is an online growth strategy and trained quiz funnel expert. She specializes in helping entrepreneurs who are sick of being the best kept secret out there and generating high quality leads using the magic of online quizzes. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the Freedom in Business Show.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here as well. And you know what? It's so nice thinking that we get to work together in so many different ways as well. That's been a great
I know,
pleasure.
right? So for those of you who are just meeting Helen for the first time, and you may just be meeting me for the first time as well, Helen and I have worked together for going on 2-3 years, I think, almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was within a coaching program. She was the head coach, and I was in that program for 1.5 years. And then I became a coach within the program as well. So now we work together in that capacity. And it's great to be able to collaborate with you.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, the program we're in is just such a great way to still be able to be in touch and support entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to dive right in and find out a little bit of your history. So tell me a little bit first, if you'll share with us, how did you get started in business, in your own business? And is the business you're doing right now the same thing as what you started in?
Yeah, definitely. So people often have this story of like they're really entrepreneurial when they're younger and, they were selling sweets at their school, this kind of stuff. I didn't have any of that. I actually started out in a really corporate background. So I did economics at university. I went on and trained with Accenture in strategy consulting for government. And it was like, as far from kind of entrepreneurial as you can imagine. But I knew as soon as I took the job, it wasn't really what I was meant to be doing. So I actually moved to a charity, like the biggest youth charity in the UK. Seem to tell my accent, I'm UK based. And I actually spent an amazing, I think it was about 6 years working directly with entrepreneurs who want to start their own business. And for me, that really just lit this kind of fire inside of me. Like I saw them coming through all their creativity, all their ideas. And then I got to the point where I was just like, okay, I've caught the bug. Like now I want to start my own business. So I left without the biggest plan in the world. So maybe not the best way to do it. But I left and I set up a couple of businesses, actually, one of which I still run. So I started doing property development and property management, which I still do. Is kind of it's one of my big businesses that I'm running, which I love. It's kind of creative. I get to kind of also be really practical on the building sites, that kind of stuff. And I also started quite randomly an Amazon business selling, I can't remember, the safety vests. So like the really reflective safety vests, which did really well. I was making good profit, but I realized very early on in that as well that it just didn't light me up, and that's a big lesson that I learned at that point, was you've got to do something that you really enjoy doing and you can see a purpose to. So I finished that, I kind of wrapped that up, sold all my stock, and just did what I'd been doing for like nearly a decade. Like I went and started doing strategy support for businesses, helping kind of huge kind of manufacturing businesses to kind of get funding, right down to kind of small startups. And over the years I've kind of honed it and pivoted, and you know how it goes, like your business doesn't look the same as when you started it. So I'm now focusing very much on lead generation, because it's the big missing piece that I see with so many businesses. Entrepreneurs are incredible at what they do, but they just don't have enough people knowing about them. So that's the bit that I really want to help them with, because I see so many people just kind of giving up and getting really disheartened, thinking that they're terrible at being an entrepreneur, but actually they just really need more people to know that they exist in the world.
Yeah, that's one of the things I know you helped me a lot with when I was in my lows, for sure, of this isn't working. What do I need to do? How do I change this? How do I do this or that? It's like I'm getting a little bit of income, but and I know, like, the opportunity came up to coach within the same program that I was in. And you're like, well, have you thought about that? Like, have you thought about applying for that? You'd be great at it. It keeps you doing the same thing, doing what you love. Why does everything have to be dependent on like your business? Like, right. And that was a huge starting point for me. It was like, one, I think just you even just seeing like believing in me, right? And then, but then also being able to picture my business as this multifaceted thing, as opposed to just like all the clients have to come in this particular way.
Mhm.
And so, now when I look at my business, and I have to tell the audience, like, it is because of those few little words that Helen said that now I have a few different contracts that I work in, where I'm kind of freelancing or doing contract work for some other companies, and then also running my business. And that's how all of that comes together. And in every single aspect, I'm coaching. I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still getting to coach. And
also, like, it takes the pressure off. If you just have one stream of income, it's a huge amount of pressure on that stream, and it just takes away the enjoyment of it. Whereas if you spread it a little bit and you've got kind of someone bringing in, work for you, and you're also bringing in your own work, it's just, I think it eases it a lot more.
Right. So you named a couple of your streams of income, and I'm sure you have a few more. So if you could just kind of bullet through all of the ways that income comes into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously property, so that's a big one. So that's managing projects, managing business, people's properties on their behalf, and then also managing a couple of rental properties that we own. So that's kind of a big side of it. Also doing kind of quiz funnels. So as I said, I'm kind of a trained quiz funnel expert, so designing and creating quiz funnels for entrepreneurs. And I've done like a mini course, and I'll be expanding into a bigger course next year with that. I then also, obviously, I'm head coach in the coaching program that we're working together, so that's another stream of income. And then I also do, kind of harking back to my economics days, I really enjoy kind of the financial markets, so I'm also kind of doing share investment and dabble in a little bit of cryptocurrency. I don't think I understand it massively well, but for me that's more like my long-term plan. Like, the shares are kind of there, I'm not taking money out of them, I put money in when I can, and that will stay there and become like a bit of a nest egg, like when I need it when I'm older.
Perfect. So as you grew and expanded, did it happen organically as you added these other things? Was it, since you are a strategist, was there some planning ahead of time that I'm going to work on this, and then I'm going to add, these other two things, or this one other thing? Or did it just kind of happen, so to speak?
I mean, the investment kind of happened organically, as in, like, I'd be reading about something, I'd see what I thought was a good investment, so I kind of put some money in then. So that kind of happened organically. When I first left my job, I spent most of the time setting up my property business, because for me that's steady recurring revenue. So that I really focused on. And then once I felt like that was more established, I then started looking at kind of my own sort of coaching and mentoring practice. I could have probably done it all at once, but I think I would have done it very poorly, because it's a lot. Like, I wouldn't want to. I enjoy staggering it, because it just takes, again, the pressure off. It makes it more enjoyable, which is, I'm all about enjoyable business, really. And it gives it time to kind of grow naturally as well, rather than just kind of rushing through and doing things for the sake of getting it done. It gives me time to really think about, like, what do I want to do? How do I want this to work? What's it going to look like?
So with all these different aspects of your business, and different businesses even, what does a typical week look like for you? How do you schedule it all in? How do you make it all happen and not work 24 hours a day?
Yeah, poorly. No, I'm just kidding. It's definitely a work in progress. It works for me. Like, if you said to me, you're only going to have one business and that'll be your focus, I wouldn't want that, even if it was bringing in all the money I needed, because I have like lots of different sides to me. I have the creativity, I have the strategy. I get bored very easily. So that's kind of why it's not just kind of happened. I've purposefully given myself different tasks. I'm quite set in terms of my call time. So I will only generally do phone calls with clients on a Tuesday and a Thursday afternoon. So I kind of ring fence those afternoons. I don't intend to get any other work done. I just want to serve my clients in those times. So that means that, like, originally I was like doing a call here and then a call here, and then it's just, I'm forever kind of getting ready for the next call, and it just didn't really work. So I kind of, property definitely has seasons. So when I'm looking at my year ahead, I will always block out. I won't do launches, for example, in September or October or November, because that's when everything breaks. That's when you get new people in the properties. So you know, it's just kind of forward planning. Like I'll properties very much my focus September to November. The rest of the time, it's really just I have a list of what I want to get done, and then I look at the time I have available and put it in. I do at the beginning of every week, I will always book in my gym sessions first. So that always goes in. That's non-negotiable now. Didn't used to be like that, and I've definitely suffered because of that. So I've learned from that kind of mistake. And then yeah, I just kind of, and then I'm just kind of let go, I think, of the pressure as well as like, if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. Like I'm not working in it's not a life and death business that I'm in. So I will serve my clients, you know, 100%. Other things, if it slides by a week, 2 weeks, I'm not going to get mad at myself.
Do you have certain boundaries around, like you mentioned boundaries around like those times when you have client calls? Are there other boundaries that you have set of times that like you just don't work? That is your downtime. You don't like that. It's kind of like the non-negotiable of the gym. Are there other ways that you ensure that you don't burn out, that you don't, that you're keeping yourself in sights too?
Yeah, so unless there's a real reason why I need to, I won't work weekends. Sometimes there's busy seasons, and I get that, as long as it's a season. So if it's like a couple of weeks before a launch or something, like as long as I can see that there's a reason, that there's an end, okay. But generally I don't work weekends. Also things like, because obviously I'm UK based and because of the time zones, quite often I might have to have like a call at maybe like 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night. I try and avoid it, but if I have to, fine. And then I'll always make sure I have like a later morning the day after. So I'm quite organic with that and quite kind of flexible. And then yeah, just trying very hard, not always great at it, to kind of not check boxer, not check things like outside of, you know, essentially 5 p.m. is the target.
Awesome. Thank you. Because I know that's one of the things that a lot of us as entrepreneurs struggle with, is balancing all of that. And so I like to get some insight into how others do it so that everybody can maybe find, because what I've found, and even through these interviews, is everybody is dependent on the calendar for structure. So that's what I have heard over and over. And I know a lot of people rebel against that. They want to have a little more flow, and you can have some of that, but if you really want to achieve your goals, you've got to schedule it. But then also that balance to make sure that the scheduled time doesn't go from 8 a.m. to 12 midnight of work time.
And you know, I think, to be honest, if I worked more hours, and I have space to work more hours, like I don't work a full week for sure, I could definitely reach my goals sooner, but just in a much less enjoyable way. And it's just not worth it to me. Like I'd prefer to take longer to do something and to work like 3 days a week or something, versus, probably not 3 days, maybe 4 days a week, versus working like 6 days a week and getting there sooner. It's just not worth it.
Right. It's great that you've figured that out, because with some of the clients that I work with, their thought of when they should be, you know, profitable, especially if they're just getting started, they're at zero, right? They have 0 leads, they've got $0, they're just getting started, and a lot of new entrepreneurs come in and say like, this has to be profitable within 90 days or something, right? And depending on what it is, if you're starting from 0, there's some expectations we've got to set, right? And I love that you've said, you know what, it's okay to me for it to take a little longer to get there, for me to have the quality of life that I want, right?
And I'm sounding very like kind of wise when I say that, but it's I've learned that through error, like for sure.
Right.
I've done the long days, I've done the working weekends, I've done getting stressed out, the overwhelm, like all these things. And I hit a point probably about 6-7 months ago where I was just like, it's just not worth it to me. Like, it's just not. So what needs to change? And actually what genuinely needs to change? Because I've said that before, but then I kind of go back to my old ways. But this has been like a proper change, which is nice.
Yeah. All right. So I want to shift into your expertise in quizzes
Sure.
and really learn from you. What is the benefit? So I guess first tell us why would a business want to use a quiz?
Mm-hmm.
Where does it fit in to the scheme of their business and drawing in leads? Like why would you do that? There are lots of ways to bring in leads. So tell us the benefits of quizzes.
Yeah, do you know what? I mean, for me, I love a quiz because it's so interactive. I think that's the big thing. I feel like the static freebies and kind of opt-ins of yesteryear, they're kind of died a death slightly. You know, people, they might download them, but they don't really use them. And actually, for me, the whole point of that first interaction through a freebie is to really start building that community, building that relationship. It's not just about like gathering email addresses. So first off, it's interactive. So like every time they're answering a question, they're that much more, I call it like little micro commitments, like they're that much more committed to finding out about you and who you are and how you can help them. So you're generally getting people kind of opting in who really want to understand who you are, which is brilliant. It's also like they generally work best when they're positive. So we're often taught as entrepreneurs to kind of really play on that kind of pain point and like really kind of, hammer that home. And if you don't, opt into this email list or buy this thing, then, your life and your business is going to implode. Quizzes are kind of the antithesis of that. They are positive, they're about encouragement, and the end result is the same. You get someone opting into your list, but one is that they opt in from a place of fear versus one that they opt in from a place of feeling really empowered. And I know for a fact that I would prefer to have the second lot on my list.
Yeah.
It's an energy. It's about how they show up. It's about how they interact with you going forward. And there's loads of reasons why I love quizzes, but the kind of another main one really is about information. So we're taught as entrepreneurs, do your market research. Got to research your market, got to research. And most people will do it right at the very start, but they don't do it after that point. And actually, a quiz is essentially like continual market research. So you get to understand how your audience is changing, you get to ask them questions, you then get to tailor your marketing message. So that specificity, which is so important in marketing nowadays. So you get to tailor your marketing message to the result that they've got, the segmentation that they've fallen into in your business. So rather than emailing someone who's brand new in business about, how to scale to, 6 figures, you wouldn't send them that message. That's too daunting. That's too big a step. You can see from their result, actually, they're right at the very start. So let's talk to them about how to make that first sale. And it's, again, just building a much more authentic relationship that's based on where someone's at, as opposed to where like a general kind of here's where everyone's at when they come to my business.
Right. And
then kind of really finally, like it plays to our human nature. Like we are biologically programmed to want answers to questions. So, people generally like they start a quiz and they will want to get to the end of it. So I think, according to BuzzSumo, 82% of people who start a quiz will finish it and opt in, which is just like a huge opt-in rate versus like a normal kind of static freebie. And there's loads more reasons, but those are kind of like the main ones really. That's why I kind of feel like a quiz is really kind of the ultimate opt-in. And like we said, you can use it as an opt-in, that kind of that first stage in the funnel, or kind of customer journey. I prefer that kind of phrase. So when people are just finding out about you, but you can also use it in other places in your business. So you can use it to find out more about your who you've already got on your list. You can use it to tailor the kind of customer experience once someone's within your business. So if someone's signed up for a course, for example, give them a quiz at the very start and find out where they're at, and then you can tailor their module recommendation or their pathway through your program or your course based on their results. You can use it to kind of gather feedback. Like there's all sorts of different ways you can use it. Most usual is the kind of front end opt-in, but there's other ways that it definitely works well.
I think that's fascinating. I really do, because the interaction that you get. Mm-hmm. I like that you called it those micro commitments. Each question, they're more and more committed to getting to the end. Yeah. And so then functionally, they answer all the questions and then they get a response immediately, or they have to put their email in to get the response. or there's a piece of it that they get? How does that work? Like that?
Yeah, I mean, you can set it up in different ways. There's some great softwares out there that allow you to do it in different ways. I generally say, you know, ask them to give their email address before you give them the results. So they're bought into getting the result. You've put the time and energy into creating the quiz and giving them the results. So, you know, the exchange for that is obviously the email address. And then they would get their results page, which talks to them more in depth about, you know, their particular segment, ideally give them kind of an action plan, something they can really kind of work on immediately. And you can go into quite a lot of depth with that. Almost like every results page is kind of like I wouldn't say like a whole ebook, but like at least a kind of PDF style length, you know, document.
And is there a magic number of questions that works very well? And when do you lose them or anything like that? Like,
yeah,
or does it depend on the quality of the questions?
It kind of slightly depends on topic. So like some of these quizzes you see, like when you're trying to work out like Enneagram kind of personality quizzes, they can be pretty long, but generally I say up to about 10. After that point, you start to kind of lose people because they don't know enough about you or your methodology yet to feel warranted in investing more time than probably 10 questions.
So tell us a few success stories. Tell us how you've implemented this. Can you share some of your client experiences with us?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of it's just around increased opt-in rates. So I work with a client called Holly, who's an incredible productivity coach, and she ended up with an opt-in rate. I think it was about 80% of people who started opted in. And then the big thing after that, because she'd already started that nurturing process, she had an average open rate of 70% plus on her welcome sequence after they'd opted in, which is just huge. Like you would normally aim to, if you got kind of 50% open rate on your first email, you'd be like chuffed. But she's already built that because people already invested in her, because she's already given them an understanding through her language kind of about her and her personality. They're really invested. So that's why the open rates are just like absolutely huge. And, you know, I've seen those kind of results across the board with, you know, quizzes, with other people's quizzes that they've kind of set up. You know, it just works so well. And the interesting thing as well is that the generally the ad spend to drive traffic to a quiz is much lower than a normal ad spend to a normal freebie, which is great because then it's an incredibly scalable, you know, opt-in.
Right. What are some other tips that you can give us around the quiz itself? Because I'm just sitting here thinking, like, what would my quiz be? And I can see some of like what around the stage of business they're in. Mm-hmm. But what are some topics of quizzes that you've created?
Yeah, I mean, kind of top tips is always, it's kind of similar to other opt-ins, like make it as specific as possible. So you want to give them a really solid outcome. Generally you want to build it backwards, which sounds kind of strange. So you want to obviously come up with your topic idea, but then you want to kind of jump to the end and figure out like what your segments are. So kind of your segmentation strategy, your results categories, build your results pages, then you build your questions and your answers, and you kind of work your way back, which is slightly counterintuitive, but it sort of makes sense because obviously everything has to lead into the final result for it to make sense. So that's kind of a top tip. Like I said, keep it positive. So, you know, keep it, you know, try and sort of infuse your personality into it and make the questions interesting and positive. So rather than like, what is the, I think off the top of my head, like what's the biggest mindset hurdle that's stopping you from reaching your goal? So that's quite a negative question. Right. You can flip that and say, you know, it's 12 months time, you know, you're at a business retreat celebrating hitting all your goals for the year. What did you let go of in order to get here? So you've kind of future paced it, you put it in the positive, you're still getting the same answers in terms of understanding where they're at, but it's just a very different way of asking the question. And then, yeah, I mean, in terms of topics, like it's varied. I've had quite a few. I had kind of a productivity coach. I've had some business coaches. I've worked with a fertility coach, looking at kind of how to get your body like ready for kind of baby making business. I'm trying to think who else. I'm just about to start working with a marketing person I'm really excited about. Got a brand person coming on board quite soon. Oh gosh, I can't remember all of them, but yeah, just a good variety, and they can work in so many different industries. I've seen them in like funeral directors businesses. I've seen them in like all sorts, pick out your best jeans style, makeup, products, businesses they can work really well with. So yeah, a good variety.
And that's what it sounds like, is that any type of business can really use that. Whether it's a service-based business, like you said, a coaching business, or product-based business. How do you know if a quiz is right for your specific business? Like, how would you know that that's a great type of lead magnet to create?
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of said already, it works for any kind of business. So that's not really a kind of deciding factor. I don't recommend it for kind of your first opt-in. Like it is, and I'm not going to kind of lie about that, it is a more complicated opt-in. It takes more time. You're creating 4 results pages, you've got to design it out, you've got all sorts of things. So it takes a bit of time. So generally, if you've had an opt-in that's working, but maybe it's kind of not working quite as well as it was, or if you're at the stage where you're really ready to start scaling your leads and kind of getting more people through your business because you've tried your program, you've got the basic things in place, you've got your website, etc., that it can work really well then. And it also, if you feel like you're kind of slightly getting lost in the internet ether with your competitors, if you're trying to find a way to kind of stand out, it's a great way to stand out from other people in your industry.
So the results that you get from the quiz itself, when they've answered the questions, on the back end, from the technical standpoint, you're really trying to filter out and kind of say, okay, this person goes in this bucket, this person goes in this bucket. And so then what do you do with that information?
Yeah, so I would tag them in my email list, so I obviously know which bucket they've fallen into. I can then use that information to target them with specific information. So for example, in my quiz, I've got kind of various stages of business startup, kind of from startup right the way through to scaling. So when I'm looking to kind of promote my one-to-one coaching services, then I will generally tailor that towards my sort of the scaling category. When I'm looking at promoting my mini course around my quiz, then I'll probably send that out to like the first couple of categories, kind of the visibility ones, people who are ready to kind of get more eyeballs in what they do. If I'm looking at something else that's more tailored for the beginner end, then I'd kind of send it directly to those people. So quite often my email list won't all receive the same email. There's general ones that go out, but they quite often I might tailor an offer to a specific group.
That's a great distinction, because your message should be different if you've got the scaling business versus the startup pre-revenue type of business.
Yeah.
So when somebody is already struggling or not consistent with communicating to their email list, with writing those emails, with sending something that's of value, not just a sales email or, hey, we're doing a flash sale, or go check out the next blog post, but something that's more targeted. No, that's not even the right word, but okay, somebody who's just not consistent, we'll put it that way. It sounds like it could become overwhelming to say, okay, well, I'm going to write this email, this is what I want to say. Do you tweak then each email, or yeah,
I mean, you can do it that way.
How often, I guess, are you sending something very targeted versus something that can work for all of the segments? That's probably the best way to ask the question.
I mean, it kind of depends where I'm at in my kind of marketing plan, really. I'm quite organic with mine, so I will generally have an idea of when I'm launching specific offers, and generally in the run up to those specific offers, if it's very good for a particular segment, then I might send that segment their own kind of emails. But usually most of my emails are across the board quite similar. And then I might tweak like the PS, for example, or I might tweak, just the offer. So it's kind of hard to answer. Generally, kind of pre-launch and launch will be tailored. In between might not be quite as much.
Okay, that's helpful. That's helpful to know. I'm sitting here thinking from a content strategy. I was going to write one email, but I have 4 segments and now I need to write 4. But it doesn't always have to be that every single one is tailored.
And I think it's like anything in business, do what works, do what's manageable for you. Like that's the most important thing.
Yeah. So it can be easier.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Then mine naturally wants to complicate things, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, do you have any other advice for our audience around creating, not specifically the quizzes, but from going back to just the multiple streams of income? If you're starting out, you've got that first business, you're getting some income, at what point would you recommend from a strategy perspective that somebody considers, now let me look at a second stream?
Yeah, that's a really tough one. I think a lot of it depends on how much time you've got available. I personally, I'm actually quite cautious in business. Like, I'm quite risk averse. So I personally prefer to feel confident in a stream of income before I add another one. And I think other people probably say, do it before you feel confident. But for me, I like to see, like, if I'm hit a certain income level in a business, I want to see that income level like a good few months first before I decide, actually, like, I feel confident in that one now I have the time and the ability to look at a different stream of income. So yeah, I think also just like looking back, not all of mine was particularly planned. It wasn't like, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to hit this, and then I'm going to start this business. It was partly as well when opportunities kind of came up, so I was kind of open to other opportunities because I knew I didn't want to just run one business. And if they didn't come up, then I might decide, you know what, now I feel confident enough to create my own opportunity. But quite often they just kind of presented themselves. And so I kind of took advantage, really.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong to be risk averse. I think, or, looking at that, what came to mind when you said that was Pete Vargas, who coaches and teaches people how to create a speaking career, right? How to use speaking to grow their business. He talks about that, about having like that one audience, the one product, the one thing, and you're going to do that one thing over and over and over and over again until, like you said, it's consistently bringing in income. It's dependable, it's reliable. And not until then do you add a second audience. So it's kind of the same thing, right? So don't add that second income stream. Now there's some smaller ones like affiliate marketing and things like that you could add in for sure very easily early on. And I know that's something that I did. All of us have the different softwares that we use, and depending on your business model and what you're teaching and what you're coaching on, if it fits in, hey, sign up for their affiliate program. If it's something that you're using and you may be recommending to your audience as well, that's a great way to bring in a little extra income each month.
Yeah, definitely. And, I would definitely recommend like trying things out in a niche. So like, I'm doing quiz done for you services. I've got the mini course, I've got a new course coming out next year. So like, I wouldn't necessarily wait to be established in one of those before I try another, because it's all similar topics, similar audience.
Right.
What I probably wouldn't do is start a property business and then 2 months later start my quiz business, and then very completely different headspace, completely different audience. That for me would feel quite like overwhelming. So I think experimenting with different income streams within a very similar topic, I think, is a great thing to do.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. All right, so you have a free gift for us, or you have a quiz for us that we can go and take, so we can experience this. Tell us a little bit about the quiz and what we can expect from that.
Yeah, so if you're interested in creating a quiz for your own business, it's definitely a good idea to kind of experience it from a user perspective, because it just starts to spark some ideas as to kind of how it might work for your business. So if you just go to my website, so that's helenmunshi.com/quiz, you can take it and it will give you 45 seconds to go through the quiz, and then you get like a custom plan for sort of where you're at in your business in order to be able to grow it. So you'll get some useful information and you'll get to funnel hack a quiz as well. So that's, exactly. So yeah, enjoy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show today. This has been really enlightening for me. I know I've taken plenty of quizzes and I've thought about the quizzes, but like I said, that one little mindset shift for me of, now if I do this and I segment my audience, now I got to create 4 different emails, and I wasn't ready to go there. So thank you for clearing that up for me.
Yeah.
I don't have to go there.
Yeah, always keep it simple.
Right, right. But having the information in the different segments, and like you said, that continuous market research, that's smart for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you for having me on.